Hey guys, meet the brand new AMG CLA35. Now that is a mouthful. And in this video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this car, we're gonna do a walk around, we're gonna show you what makes it an AMG. We're gonna show you what makes it different from the CLA250. We're gonna show you how much room there is, and we're gonna take it for a ride. And at the end of this video, we're gonna let you know whether you should buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it. But let's start with that first thing I said, AMG CLA35. Now, once upon a time, at least when I was a kid, Mercedes came in like 5 varieties, right? There was a C-Class, an E-Class, an S-Class. Very simple, very easy to keep track of. And then if you wanted the high-performance model, then you'd get the AMG version of the C-Class or the S-Class. Not anymore. Oh my gosh, there's so many different cars now, it's very hard to keep track of what actually all those letters and numbers mean. So what happened was Mercedes started building crossovers, the G-Class. As you know, it's been around a long time, but instead of calling the crossovers the G whatever, they decided to call it the GLA or the CLA for coupe, or the GLA or GLB for a crossover. And that's relatively confusing because now the G's designate crossovers and the C's designate sedans. But it gets even more confusing than that because let's talk about the AMG part. Instead of having, let's say, a GLA AMG, now you have number designations behind that. So this AMG CLA, which stands for sedan 35, means that it's the mid-level of the CLA class. So there's a CLA 250 entry level, there's the AMG CLA 35, which is this one, and there's a 45 coming, which will have even more horsepower. Is that confusing? The best way to remember it is the S-Class is still the luxury version, so a GLS is the S-Class of the crossovers, so on and so forth. All right, I think we've spent enough time talking about how Mercedes names their cars, and if I got something wrong, let me know in the comments below. So let's take a look at this car. Let's start at the back, as always, and let's see how much room there is in the trunk. Now, this is a relatively small car, but in this version, in this newest version, the car has gotten longer, lower, and wider, which in my mind is always a good thing. Now, of course, because it is the AMG version, you've got the big old AMG badge here. They've taken the license plate and moved it from up here down to here, giving it a little bit more of a cleaner look. And of course, you've got the fact that it is a CLA 35. Like I said, there is a 45 coming. And let's see how much room is in the trunk. You know, it's not bad. We've got a ski pass-through. We don't have a full-size spare. These are 19-inch tires that we're looking at, and they're very big and very wide. Of course, you've got this diffuser, and now you've got these very purposeful exhausts that poke out the back, letting anybody who's behind you know that you are in, well, in this case, not the fastest CLA, but the AMG 35 version of it. I know, it's confusing. All right, how about headroom? Now, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2", and I'm sitting behind myself, and I'm going to tell you, it's going to be tight back here. I mean, recently you've got these coupe 4-door sedans, and what you give up for the sense of style, in my case, is certainly headroom and knee room. So if you're going to be taking your buddies to lunch in this, they're probably not going to want to sit in the back seat. But then again, this is the smallest version of the Mercedes, basically the entry-level performance version of a Mercedes. So if you want a little bit more room, this is probably not the vehicle to go for. All right, let's look under the hood. Let's see what's powering this bad boy. Got my notes here. The AMG version of the CLA is not available in a 2-wheel drive. The CLA 250 is available in rear-wheel drive or 4MATIC in the case of Mercedes. This one is only available in all-wheel drive, and that is because this 2-liter turbo is tuned to put out a little bit more horsepower than the standard one, and that's 302 horsepower and 295 pound-foot of torque, kind of that magic 300 number. And Mercedes says that this vehicle will do 0 to 60 in just under 5 seconds, or 4.8 seconds, which is a lot. Now let's talk about price, because if you want to get the fast bad boy, you're going to pay a little bit more for it. So Mercedes says that this car, if I check my notes here, starts at just under, if I remember right, about $48,000, but $46,900, so I was very close. But this one is probably a little bit more expensive, so let's hop on inside and see what the one that we're testing today costs. We've got the Monroney, and I'm betting it's not as inexpensive as the entry-level model. All right, there we have the Monroney CLA35 4MATIC, of course AMG. We're looking at $62,855, which is, you know, a big chunk of change. Now you're getting into certainly a level where a lot of high-performance cars can be had for that, both new and used. Things like the driver's assistance package, which includes, of course, all the safety tech, autonomous stopping, blind spot monitoring, lane following, that's $2,250 option. The parking assist package is a $1,000 option. And because this is an AMG, you do get a multimedia package, so you do get a little bit more tech. You do get gesture controls in this one, kind of like the BMW. I'm not going to show you those, but they're here in the car. You also get, of course, a lot of the AMG badging. You get red French stitching, give it a little bit more of that sporty character. And basically it's the same layout. And of course, the most important thing you get, can you guess? Come on. You get a flat bottom steering wheel with the AMG logo. And of course, so you know what is dead on center, you get your little mark there to keep you on the track and have your steering wheel centered at all times. Now we are riding on Michelin Sports, which are very aggressive summer tires. So this car certainly has the rubber to put down the track numbers. And if we ever get this car in Colorado, we'll give it to our race car driver Paul to take around the track and see how just fast it is. But since we don't have a track here, and since this is kind of a first drive, let's take it for a ride and see how this dual clutch transmission handles it. You'll also note that when you start it up, you get a lot of interesting colors. That's all configurable. If you like, gosh, I'm gonna go with purple, or is it violet? Then this is definitely the car for you. If you don't like it, that's all changeable. In terms of kind of tech, you get this big screen, which Mercedes calls a surfboard. Gives you big horizontal access to your displays, and of course there are different drive modes. And in this car we've got slippery, individual, comfort, sport, and there's got to be one above it, Sport Plus. Sport Plus! That is, of course, not quite track mode, but you could do track mode. There's also a very actually easy to use launch control in this vehicle, which in this residential part of Arizona we won't be using because it's very early and I think I would wake up the neighbors. But let's keep it in Sport Plus. Let's put it in gear and let's take the vehicle for a ride. Now, I have driven this already, and the one thing I can tell you is this does have a sports car-like ride, and what I mean by that is it's pretty firm. So if you're looking for something that's going to give you that floating carpet ride, this is not the vehicle. This vehicle is specifically tuned with, of course, a hand-built AMG power plant to go around corners. And so in Arizona, we've got incredibly good roads. But if you're in some place like Michigan where the roads are a little bit more torn up, this is probably going to be a car that you will feel the potholes and suspension joints and whatever else you're driving over in the cold climates. Now, I do like the size of this car. I'm a little tight in here, as you can tell. I'm a big guy, and so it does feel just a little on the tight side. But overall, it's one of those cars that you certainly sit in and not on top of, which is always a good thing in my mind. So let's merge onto this road and give it a little bit of the beans and see how 4.8 seconds feels. Oh yeah. There's that dual clutch. Oh, that was way too fast, way too quickly. So that's why you get an AMG. That's what, you know, puts the smile on my face. And that's what makes AMG so special. And I've been driving a lot of electric cars recently, and the cool thing about electric cars, of course, is that they have instant torque. And even though this car doesn't have instant torque, that 2-liter certainly does approximate an electric car. And of course you got that cool little backfire, which is always one of my favorite things. I think a long time ago Jaguar started doing that, and now every time I drive a car that has it, I just can't help but get a huge smile on my face, because it makes driving a car that much more intuitive. The steering, you know, it's electric, so it gets heavier as you go up from Comfort to Sport Plus. In terms of steering feel, I think I'll leave that to Paul. He's a much better judge of character than I am of that. But the performance is certainly there. And it's hard to believe that this same 2-liter will come out probably a couple months after this vehicle is on sale, which is end of this year, with a more powerful engine. And we're looking at not 300 horsepower, but the 45 will have around 390 horsepower. Now that's a lot of power to put through a pretty small car. And it reminds me in a lot of ways of the very first M3s. And over the years, of course, the M and the 3 Series have become much bigger. And this car is not that big yet. So if you like small, fast, compact cars, this should certainly be on your buying list. All right, so let's talk about whether you should buy it, lease it, rent it, or forget it. Now, I've got a soft spot in my heart for cars that make no sense. Think about the G-Class 63 or the Demon. It's not quite that crazy, so I'm going to hold off saying buy it until I actually get a chance to drive the 45 version of this, because it's hard to believe that 4.8 seconds 0 to 60 today isn't as crazy fast as it could be. But because this car will depreciate, and because there's still a faster version of it coming, and I want to kind of hedge my bets, I'm going to give it a lease it. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fast Lane Car. Remember, if you guys got questions about truck buying or car buying, every Monday and Friday at noon Pacific time, we do a show, What Car or Truck Should I Buy? That's coming up every Monday and Friday at noon Pacific. Tune in to live and we'll answer your questions. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Ciao.